Hi everyone and welcome. This is Lavender Sky Panther. Today is Thursday, February 17th, 2022, and the topic for the day is called Team Sky. It's a collection of images and sky observations happening February 7th through the 15th, 2022. And this is show number 147. And here is another periodic alternate cover slide. I was toying with which one to go with, see which one you like the best. And we're going to kick it all off with the greetings from around the world. I'd like to say good day, osio, hao, buongiorno, guten tag, kia ora, jambo, kedu, buenos dias, bonjour, ni hao, dzień dobry, konnichiwa, dobrowania, annyeonghaseyo, boa tarde, dobry den, aloha winala, kalimera, guten dag, and good day. Now, I haven't said it in a while, but obviously, if you're watching this show and you don't see the greeting in your language popping up at the bottom and you'd like to see it in a future show, just let me know in the comment section or shoot me an email that I have in the description box. I'll be happy to include it. Okay, that said, I'm combining once again the greetings from around the world page with the words, wisdom, and spirit of the day page. There are going to be a few this time, and we're going to go off-world a bit as we explore the exciting world, really kind of unknown to me, of the recent video games, and this one is called Stellaris. Now, I'm bringing this up because there are a lot of very fascinating clues and tells, not only in the movies, all kinds of entertainment platforms and medias, but also in books and video games as to where we are at and what we're actually experiencing now in this little spiritual war of ours that has been going on for millennia, and many of us are just waking up in the quote-unquote Great Awakening now, to even know that we're in this kind of thing. And it really is a game in and of itself. Many call what we're living in a simulated reality. Obviously, with the Matrix movies kicking it off, like, oh, hey, wait, what's really real and what are we in that we might not know about? And so, yes, there's a very dark side. It's just the spiritual war is the dark side and the light side. Like, Star Wars movies were trying to tell us, yes, that's a real thing. The dark and the light and the battle thereof. And so, all that to say, I do like to look in. There's a very dark Hollywood beast system. Obviously, I think more and more people are waking up to the fact of what this death cult is in Hollywood, and not everybody, but a big portion of it. But there's also a light side of that too. And so the light side of it is just kind of drop-ins and hints and things to trigger the memory of a lot of us here on this planet. As to what we're finding ourselves in with this spiritual war, and to just do everything we can to be the light, shine the light within, and be all about love. And the darker side, obviously, the other undercurrent that's trying to defeat that is going to throw all kinds of fear-mongering, hate, get conflict going, and just brew that up and keep that stirring up and try to get people to be outside of their natural state, which is love, which is the ever-present, light within. And so all that to say, I thought, let me go delve into the little world here of video games and just see what's out there. So I have somebody in the know, a friend. I certainly am not in the know on all the video games. I keep one eye out just to see what's coming up on the horizon, what seems to be popular, so to speak. Honestly, the last video games I think I played were back in the day. If anyone remembers Atari and Space Invaders, and there was Galaga and things like that, and they stressed me out, to be honest. Also, I am not a fan in no way, shape, or form of any of these first-person shooter games or anything that evokes fear. There are a lot of those out there now too, or horror. So, because actually each click in those first-person shooters represents a kill, especially when they're really realistic. And it's a little bitmap-y, little cartoon goblin, maybe that's something else. But karmically too, there's a fuzzy line between what's real and what is imagined. And anytime we imagine something and see it in our mind's eye, that becomes reality. So that's why I really do not like these first-person shooters, because that's like saying, you're shooting people. Every click is a kill. So no, I don't support that. However, I looked into this world of this Stellaris video game recently, and it's pretty fascinating because you not only create your own team, your home world, your whole system, political. You can choose your politicians, your leaders, your scientists, your scientific team, research teams. But you can also choose if you're going to be, and I'm probably going to mess up some of this. I'm just going to throw some stuff out. It might be paraphrasing or examples. I don't know if it's actually in the game, but I'm just going on loose memory from when I set up a little homeworld for myself last week. But you can, set up whether you're an oligarchy, an aristocracy, a democracy, eco-friendly kind of politics, all kinds of things, and even a spiritual bent on it. So I asked my friend, who definitely knows way more than this than I do, and actually this game gets pretty complicated. This is not like the little simple, Space Invaders days. But the purpose is to go out and explore, the galaxies and set up colonies and expand and not get killed, basically, because there'll be marauders and pirates on your back door, or you might pop up into some place and there's hostile neighbors and whatever. You also can explore black holes and things of that nature. So in the setup, I was asking my friend, you can also choose to be like a spiritual world and setup. And so I said, oh, well, if I choose that, I'm just going to be like defeated right in the first few minutes, right? Like people are going to just plow over me. And then my friend said, no, actually not. You can do really well as a spiritual, I'm missing the word, spiritual world or setup. Or people, okay. And so I'm like, okay, then that's what I want. I want to be a spiritual nation, and you get to choose so many fun things. You get to rename the star systems you go into. You can like name the star. You can name your colonies, obviously. Pick your little banner color scheme symbols. And you can even pick, like when you look out a window, what you see in your home world and all of that. So it's really actually very creative, can be very fun. Also, it's a strategy game. And so you're learning about management of resources and battle strategy and all kinds of things. So it's actually not bad to, um, you know, dabble with this a while, as with anything, as long as it's not in excess and you're just sitting at the computer 24/7. So I just decided to set up a little world, and I called my empire. I won't say what I called my empire, but the people are the Basaltan species, or the Basaltians, kind of a play on, I picked like rock people. And they were also very spiritual people, is how I set it up. Now, basalt the etymology is from Greek, and I think it's either Basanites or Basani. Yeah, I think you pronounce it Basanites in Greek, which means touchstone, which is a very positive meaning. Now, so I went all spiritual with this. Even the leader is like a tree hugger, and going on and on. And it turns out, my friend told me, I asked if they could play for me, because I just wanted to set it up and get an idea, get my feet wet into this thing. I didn't want to really kind of go through and play it all. So I asked my friend to play for me and see what happens. And so they played for me, and then I asked for feedback. So with all the other people you play, at the same time with, did you tell them what I did and how well it's going? And they said yes. So it turns out that my whole setup turned out to be really great, and I'm just like really expanding and doing better than anybody, based on the tenets of peace and you know friendly neighbor relations of other nations we come up with, and making a lot of allies, and all good and harmonious. So anyway, I'm going to get into some very eye-opening things about this when you pick the spiritual aspect as your team and your world. So here we go. Oh, and before we do that, I'm starting off with this star. I named it, just the name that came to me was, call it Stridalis, so that's what I did. I put "Find Your Stars," the quote here, because if you also go back and look at show number 141 of mine, called Tree, Sky, Sun, I did get a telepathic conversation happening with a Yeti friend back in January. And part of that message that I received from me personally was something about healing and balance, but also the quote, "Find your star." And I didn't quite know what that meant, but as this Yeti being, was speaking this to me, I did see this kind of image kind of came up in my head, unbeknownst to me, that this was in this video game, because I only came upon this video game, like last week. And so I found that very interesting, so I wanted to include this. And if you want to know more about the message, the telepathic conversation I was having with a Yeti friend, that really came up as quite a shock to me, but a welcomed very welcome surprise. Go check out that show. I think it's toward the half or the end. Anyway, I'm going to continue on and show other things about this game, Stellaris. So here is where you start to form colonies and expand, and you send teams out to go survey areas. You can even start to, survey a black hole. They also call it a singularity. I invite you to look up what all of that means. Now, these video games, again, they're predictive programming. They're hint dropping. And again, they can be hint dropping as positive things for us to know to start awakening as a part of the Great Awakening spiritually. But, bad dark forces, or let's just say dark, not bad, because it is about a balance at a certain point. But the dark forces also, do the hint drops, but they're actually more like hidden in plain sight. So they're being very sneaky and underhanded about things, and also distorting the truth about what a certain concept is. Or they flip the script and say, like, for example, Men in Black, those movies, and Adjustment Bureau, like these men in hats using portals. They're trying to say that, oh, these are good or neutral forces. Well, no, they're up to a lot of mischief, let's just say, and deception, and about harming and even killing people at times. So, no, they're not good. Men in Black are not our little friends, so to speak. So, you got to really look at these movies. Like I said, read between the lines with the video games, what they're dropping in as far as information, and even in books. So anyway, I invite you to explore this world of black hole singularity. There's also other games like Eve and other types of video games out there now that have the galactic theme. And they even talk about things like Dyson spheres and matryoshka, brain. And so there's a kind of a lot of interesting terms and concepts that even if you don't play the video game, you might peek in and then go investigate these topics on your own and see, hey, why are these coming up? Okay, so anyway, I'm going to continue on. Now, what really caught my attention is, I said I chose to be a spiritual nation with my nice little rock people. And this came up, so it's giving me progress reports of how my team or my world is doing out there. And this one came up, it popped up with the title, The Shroud. Now, if you're familiar with the Great Awakening, Spiritual Awakening, we talk about the veil is thinning between the 3D, as the Earth ascends and evolves up toward the 5D or fifth dimension. And as we do that, we're going to cross through the 4D astral and see all kinds of things from angels to demons to really wild stuff that also can appear in dream state. But for now, I want to just say the veil thinning is that whatever thing that is, separating our dimension from another dimension, and that line is going to start to get blurred the more we evolve and ascend up to the 5D. So if you're on board with that concept, or maybe this is just a springboard for you to look into it more. So anyway, I found this very interesting because they call the veil the shroud. So I'm going to just read it straight up to give you a little taste of what this game is about. And then I'll read one more passage and then we'll jump into the sky observations for this show. So here we go, the shroud. Like a muffled whisper in a dark room, the shroud calls to us from within our minds. It is a primordial realm of pure psychic energy that came into being at the dawn of time. All creatures that have been gifted with psionic abilities tap into the shroud in some way to draw power, even if only subconsciously. Since our transcendence, we have begun to see the shroud with greater clarity. There are patterns where once even our strongest telepaths could see only a formless mass of swirling energy. There are other things as well, spirits of a sort that gaze back on us from the other side, sometimes with curiosity, sometimes with kindness, and sometimes with malice. We are still in the process of learning the extent of our new powers, but it may be possible for us to commune with these spirits. It will require the combined efforts of our most powerful telepaths. We must explore the shroud. Now, my God, if anybody is going through a great awakening, a spiritual awakening, you probably have a lot of bells ringing all over the place on the truths that they are hitting in here. So whoever was developing this game, they know a bit, let's just say, about the spiritual side of things. And so I invite you to, see if anything, jumped out at you extra in that passage. But for me, the bottom is the real kicker here. What I didn't mention is as the Earth, ascends into in a more expansive consciousness and toward the 5D, it is said too that a lot of us here as human beings, as a process, since we are going to be on the planet ascending, if we are in that mindset and choose love over fear, that we'll start to experience a remembrance of some of our gifts and our powers. Some say we could even fly at some point, or telepathic communication will come and be the way, the way to communicate. And I'm seeing already hints of that happening with a lot of people are saying, myself included, that they can really kind of speak with plants telepathically and hear stuff back, and with animals. And so it's a real skill, and we're going to remember how to do this more effectively, even amongst ourselves. And as they're saying, also reaching other spirits. Now, people do this all the time, even now, and communicate even in dream state. And they know or remember that they are astral traveling, and they know how to work with lucid dreaming. There's so much going on right now. And it seems like everything's kind of happening at an accelerated, rapid pace, too. So right now is a time to really watch what you wish for, so to speak, because some of our spiritual powers include manifestation and seeing success with those results. So it's important to keep the mind positive so you don't bring in instant negative or adverse results you weren't counting on. Things of that nature. Anyway, let's move on to the next slide. This one just like wowed me. This one's called The Great Awakening, and I'm like, what? We're talking about this in a video game. How funny. So here we go. Here's my little species, the basaltin. So the basaltin species has experienced what can only be described as a great awakening. For a time now, we have been aware of the great psionic potential inherent in our species, but such powers have only manifested themselves in a small minority. Until now. I'm getting chills. This is what's going on right now in the world. Almost overnight, basaltins everywhere have unlocked their full psionic capacity. It is as if some sort of communal pool of basaltin psychic energy finally reached a critical tipping point, collectively awakening the latent abilities of our brains. Telepathy has already replaced most verbal communication between basaltins, and this is only one small example of the innumerable changes our society is faced with. We are now tied together in a way very few of us could have ever imagined. The veil has been lifted. This is gorgeous and exquisite, because this is what's happening. The scales are tipping now, and you see that in Canada, with everyone coming together with enormous love, whether you're a trucker or non-trucker, just the people. This is about the people overthrowing all evil in this world by having their main intent in their mind and hearts and actions is all of love, and the intent to drive out all evil and fear and darkness. We don't want it anymore on this planet. If we are going to be love-based, that needs to go. And so that is what we are choosing when you choose love. That is what we're doing, kicking away all fear, all evil, all, horrific things that have been going on this planet. Their day is done, and the veil has been lifted. It's so beautiful. So anyway, I invite you for fun just to take a look at this game if you have access to it. It's pretty wild how exactly some of it is paralleling with what's going on right now if you pick the spiritual aspect. Okay, anyway, enough about all of that. Let's get into the sky observations. And actually, before we even get to the ones in the Miami area and southeast Florida and the subtropics, tropics here, I had a friends of the Lavender Sky Panther channel here sent in some nice views from the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina from February. And I'm just bringing them up, one, because it's big rock formation. It reminded me of my basaltin rock people in the video game. But also, strange sky, strange cloud patterns happening. Something really weird is happening here where my cursor is. I did zoom in and try to get with more clarity, like I usually do, to show the cloak and craft part of it, because I know that's what that is. But because it's so pixelated, it really yielded nothing. So for now, it's just to take a nice look at the terrain as far as a nature view. Now here's another view. I'm not sure which way they're looking or what time of day, but again, friends, Photo Critic goes to Friends of Lavender Sky Panther. But this one just looks interesting to me because this looks almost really bitmappy, these shapes. And then we have something very linear, and these are more oblong, and just none of this looked like it fit. And so I definitely wanted to do some, photo enhancement on this. Now, I didn't say my usual thing as an intro, so whether you're new or returning to this channel, I extend my heartfelt thanks to you for being here, and welcome again. Whether you're new or returning, hopefully there's something in this show a little bit for everybody. If you are new, I'm going to skip my usual intro of what I'm doing here and why I'm doing it, just for time's sake, because I spent a lot of time on the intro. But you're going to get the hang of it, I'm sure. And if not, I invite you to look at any of my previous shows to kind of get more explanation and detail. I will just say that when I do enhancement, I take the original photo, and then I just edit attributes of the photo, such as color, saturation, contrast, brightness, and that's pretty much about it. Sometimes temperature, just to really pull out some amazing things. As you can see, we start to get a little more detail on color signatures, and we start to see some more things. So this is just the first step or level of photo enhancement, and sometimes I zoom in and go even more with it. So in this case, I'm just still seeing, clear, these are like very clear linear elements, and then we have some more oblong ones, and they're all within the same vicinity of each other. So there's really kind of no good explanation for that, of how natural clouds would form. And then we get these little weird things, look like they're springing off of here, and with a very straight line. I mean, ruler edge straight with a shadow to it. So I want to zoom in a little bit more. And sometimes I remove all color just because that can be distracting when I want to look at certain things. So the brain-eye connection, I do it so we also look at things a little bit differently. And so look at C.2. Look at this thing. That's not a natural cloud. It's too rigid and too engineered. So I'm calling that a cloak and craft of some type. Or it could be like a probe or some type of instrumentation sent out by a bigger cloak and craft, which I suspect is this here. And then, we've got more rigid straight elements, little things too happening off here with shadow, look like they have body to it, let's say. This even looks like a craft to me because it looks like a very symmetrical form. But again, there'll be some examples throughout the show that are more clear and more like smoking gun type of things than others. This is just getting our feet wet and looking at a different part of the country, because now we're going to jump down to subtropical to tropical Miami, Florida. Now, this is looking east in the morning, and the whole sky just felt weird. So as I always say, I'm not just looking with my physical eyes and studying anomalies and strange things, high strangeness happening in our skies these days. I'm also going by feel and using, I call it the first sense. I am reclaiming our intuition as first sense, not sixth sense. And I covered that on a previous show, why I don't like that the number 6 has been hijacked or commandeered by dark forces. There's a very positive meaning to the number 6 as well, and that's what I'm sticking with. But in the meantime, I am calling it the first sense because our intuition is our first sense. It's actually everything. But anyway, my first sense was saying, something's going on here. There's a lot of heavy particulate, and that's a great way. It's a lot of times artificially created to veil and hide cloak and craft and things, strange things going on with our sun in quotes these days. I cover the whole concept of an artificial sun, solar simulator, and other shows. Also, I invite you, as always, to look at other sky and earth observation channels happening all over YouTube, and you can tell the genuine ones of people like yourself and myself going out, looking up, and taking pictures and noticing a lot of strange stuff happening in our skies these days, especially since 2018. And as far as the sun, I believe it was commandeered with artificial tech taking over, maybe around 2014-ish. It's hard to say exactly. But there are actually patents pulled for solar simulators or an artificial sun or effects of it. So have a look there if that concept is new to you. Anyway, we're going to keep going and look at this with enhancement. So yes, the odd feeling I got is confirmed because we've got this red-pink signature, which only pops up when certain kind of things, weird things are happening in the sky. And do look at my description box below to see some of my thoughts or possibilities of what could be causing that red-pink signature. You may come up with some others of your own. I welcome that, and I welcome any interesting angles or just fun angles on any of this show in the comment section below if you like. If not, no worries. But here we see that 8.1, we're definitely dealing with an artificial light source, because there's no way our natural sun would just be this pure white, almost like a bulb, in a pure crisp circle, and reduced down to like a pinhole. We see there's an obvious bigger illumination happening beyond. So this is either a solar simulator or some other illuminating, self-illuminating body or reflecting body, and whether that's natural or some type of cosmic a cosmic natural thing or an artificial body, that's up for grabs. But anyway, it doesn't fit in with the rest. Nothing here makes sense. So then we've got these weird golden going to red and pink signatures. Something weird happening up over here too. So again, and at B.1, looks like a cloaking object here. And that, a lot of this too, I can tell because I've been doing this continuously and with zeal now for coming up on 2 years, just acutely paying attention, keenly aware and paying attention to the skies every day. All right, now we have, this is blowing out and exaggerating the contrast and other things. And look here, B.2, we've got a pure symmetrical triangle. So that tells me we're dealing with artificial craft. You can't have a pure geometrical shape that's non-spherical or circular or thereabouts and have it, be natural in our natural skies. Then the color signatures are also very telling. What the heck is going on here? Something. And like I like to say, with the red-pink, a lot of times I think it's cloaking craft in the area, generating either electromagnetic wave energy or other frequencies, and that gives us the difference in color. Anyway, we'll keep moving along, just showing it at a little bit later state, slightly different, circumstances, but we still see something just does not seem right about what's going on with our supposed sun. And again, our sun, our natural sun, would never appear to be like a pinhole in the sky like this. We're dealing with artificial technology up there. And so now we look, some haze kind of blows over, and look, this looks like a moon. It doesn't even look like our sun. At A, we're supposed to believe that this is our natural sun. No way. I've been on this planet for many decades. I'm very familiar with this area of the world too. And in no way, shape, or form did we ever see a sun like that. I grew up living outdoors, playing for like 10 hours a day, and never did I look up and see something like that when it was supposed to be the sun. Here we go, just a little more contrast to the right, and we see there's obviously a different kind of light source creating this and the illumination around it versus the illumination happening behind it. So you see what you think with this one. All right, still looking to the east around the same time, and just picking up some extraordinary color signatures where it's otherwise, just looking supposedly gray, right? Something's going on back there to generate this color. And then in the foreground, how do we get this much whiter or golden, like golden maize color in the front in a somewhat triangular form? So again, I'm saying we got all kinds of things going on and being veiled by heavy particulate and literal smoke and mirrors, so to speak, with technology employed to really alter or prevent us from seeing our original sun and the effects of it. All right, now we're looking northwest toward the evening, and what caught my attention here was just, diagonal movement when everything else is supposed to be coming across, more diagonal movement up here. Something point, something looking triangular with a very straight edge to it. So I said, okay, let's take a look at this one with enhancement, and I get that weird color signature, and look at this. This looks like a perfect pointed elliptical form. And maybe this is part of like a split V formation. This is all one craft. Something strange happening right here at this energy burst in the middle. Maybe another craft happening off to the side or joining, or maybe this whole thing is one craft with an opening in the middle. See what you think, but also at C.1, that's looking like a straight line, like a cylinder or tube sticking up here. And this may be actually a protrusion from another craft or some type of craft assembly happening down here as well. We see another pointed elliptical form, very rigid and solid. So I'm calling that cloaking craft, but see what you think. All right, this is now looking southwest toward the evening, and there's just a lot of strangeness going on. This looked like a clear form. This is making, look at this. It's like double backing. It's like a curved form, a triangular peak up here. The whole situation just seemed really strange. Also, it's taking on the characteristics of what I call the staccato cloud effect, where everything is blurry, fuzzy, and choppy to the human eye, yet everything else is like in focus and clear. And that tells me there's some local disturbance happening in the atmosphere, and I think being generated by cloaking craft above it, or one big craft. And so here we get a weird warm signature amidst all of this cool stuff surrounding it. So that tells me something is generating in here. The sunset would be happening way off to the right if it were anything related to the supposed sun. And we're going to zoom in and look at A.1 because that was looking very craft-like to me. It looked like it had, circular elements, things that were well-defined, that looked like they were engineered. And so we're going to zoom in on that element. And I do see like an opening here, weird protrusions. This thing just has a feel of it's engineered to me, and I'm going to call it cloaking craft. Then we look at things like D.2, and it's a triangular form with plasma, like wafting around it. And my go-to for cloaking material, I'm going to call it plasma, just meaning something heavier and denser than water vapor. that can linger and cling to things in the sky for a long time. Then we have B.2. It's looking very kind of triangular-like. Again, that would not be a typical profile of a natural cloud in this area of the world. Then we're going to look in the morning now, skipping to a different day. I'm looking off and I see this triangular form, if you follow my cursor, and then I look at A and look at how curved this is. It was just looking really odd, and so when we go to enhancement, look at this. It's very crisp, these lines, so to me, that says that there's some type of cloak and craft peeking up out of there. And then down here, I was looking at C.1, and again, you see the form, the outline, the profile of a triangular form. And again, something strange happening here, and you got to look at the color signatures, movement, everything. Just nothing about this whole scene seems natural. Then we're going to look northwest, and here we go. You know, just something also was looking strange about this cloud formation to the extent that we have like these waves or curves happening along the top. So we looked to the right, and actually I was so busy looking at the profile, I was missing what was hidden in plain sight right in my face at D. So this is the cover, you know, excerpt or like a different kind of view of what will be the cover. But look at this. This is a craft in and of itself at D.1 because we've got straight parallel lines and they're very rigid and it comes to a point. So I'm going to say like this is a command deck or radar dish even on top, and this is the bow of what would be a craft. See what you think though. We're going to look at it zoomed in. You know, this is more appropriately the cover. And then look at, we've got white points where it would be, you know, reflecting off the top surface. And then we've got things in shadow. But these lines are so crisp, these angles, that it has to be some type of engineered, you know, intelligent design. See what you think, though. Okay, then we're going to look still at this overall formation. We were looking at this thing at D. Now I just kind of want to look at this, what's going on here. And I don't get it too much more other than these protrusions are not natural cloud. And look at this thing. It's symmetrical. It's like two wings, you know, with a point in the center. Just very strange. And then down here at E.1, that's looking very much like a craft. It comes down to a point. It's almost a right angle. It's an obtuse angle, but it's very crisp. And that just would not happen with natural clouds. Again, look at the color signatures and bursts of energy while everything else is white in the background. Again, that's a sign that there's some type of energy generating from here, and that tells me that's cloak and craft activity. All right, then we're going to look at this scene, which gets really bizarre because there's some really dark things looming above all of this artificial, like choppy stuff and particulate, I'm going to call it, because we've got things masked and hidden up in here. So look at B.1. I don't really have any answers on this, but just all different movements. This is coming down. This is diving down, while this is at a different angle. And then we've got that staccato cloud effect. We've got the red-pink signature burst happening in the center. We have so much going on, and not to mention this clear line incised and cutting right across at yet another angle. So I'm calling this cloak and craft here and here and here. You know, see what you think. All right, then we're going to look to the south, and we're looking in the afternoon, and look at this. We start to see strange shapes being backlit, very choppy here. So we look to the right, and I don't get it too much more other than some really dark forms. But what caught my attention, we've got a bright spot here. That's not a lens flare. And bright little white spots popping up while everything else in the background is darker. That always tells me, too, that we're dealing with some type of craft and like machine parts poking up out of it. But see what you think. But regardless, it is strange that we're looking south and everything's red below this blur out, white out of glare, and then blue above it. And again, there's no setting sun here. So what's causing that wild, you know, uproar of red and pink color signatures? Then we're going to look east, also toward the same time, like around 2. And just, there were weird streaks and things happening back in here. And this whole thing was kind of dark. Just seemed out of character with the rest of the sky. So I put some enhancement on it. I don't get it too much more, but I'm suspecting that this is a craft with a cloaking material coming, pouring over it, cascading over it. Weird things are happening back in here to tell me that might be the case. But this is one of those that this one's not so clear as some of the other things that we'll be looking at. All right, now we're going to look to the south around the same time. And there was this ripple pool staccato cloud effect. In this case, it really looks like that frosted glass you see in the old detective black and white movies, the Private Eye's office. That effect is happening here, but also with a clear curve and something happening here. Now, you never have anything perpendicular moving with something perpendicular coming down to it in natural skies and cloud systems. Then we get something that's starting to look like a pointed ellipse diving in at the top at a totally different angle. So I look to the right. I have a more warm tone when I was doing the enhancements, just to better, get at what are these objects, and I couldn't get at too much more. But I'll tell you, down here is absolutely a manufactured or artificial type craft, and I'm suspecting up here as well. Okay, now still strange sky. We're going to move over to the northwest to catch this dark stuff again, and we look to the right with enhancement. There's just so much going on, that looks really, really bizarre. I mean, look at this thing kind of diving down into whatever this red-pink thing is doing. See what you see in this whole scene when you have a little more time on your own time. Also down here we got bright white popping up where there shouldn't be any of that happening. And we got a straight edge here. It's looking very triangular in form. I'm going to call D.1 a cloaking craft, straight up. All right, now we're going to look northwest. It's a little after 6 p.m. in the evening, and this was just looking strange because up toward A, it was starting to take on what I talk about in other shows, this kind of otherworldly, ethereal, kind of blue-white light was starting to appear, and you just feel it also when it's like rising up in the scene. And then we've got, of course, this like red-pink happening down here with a weird protrusion happening at D. So we look to the right with enhancement, and we get that burst of that otherworldly white, blue light. And then we even have some purples, indigos, raspberries, pinks, reds, even like golden tipped. So there's a lot of activity going on up in here. I'm going to say I do suspect, once again, cloaking craft. See what you find. Also, keep in mind, I like to always say on the shows, when I narrate these shows, I'm looking at these images on a more expanded, like a laptop screen. If I were to narrate the show just looking at a thumbnail on a handheld device, what I would be commenting on and finding might be totally different, because it's a matter of scale and how the mind, sees the eyes to brain connection, sees these things. So I highly recommend, if you are fortunate enough to have access to a laptop screen or a bigger screen monitor, and also a smaller handheld device, toggle your view up and down from the two devices and look at it at bigger scale and smaller scale as I'm talking, or you feel free to even mute when I talk and see if you can pick stuff out yourself. But you start to see a whole new world of different things going on. Okay. Now we're going to look to the east, and hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that, I'm back. So now we're going to look to the east again toward the evening, and this overall cloud just looked really strange. It had some pink flaring up in it and darkness behind it. Now keep in mind we're looking east, pure east at sunset, and there was nothing happening at this altitude diametrically opposed to this on the west horizon that could possibly create that red glow. So that means it's either being generated within this cloud or from behind it. And so we're going to look at it with enhancement, and here we see it. It's really vivid. And back here is the east horizon. Now at B.1 we have a sharp angle. This looks like a pure triangular form with other weird things happening around it. So again, I'm suspecting cloaking craft activity. We're going to zoom in on B2 a little bit more, and even A, just to see if we can get at anything more telling. I'm not seeing it so much on the bigger format. This might be one of those where you might see it better on a smaller format, or if you're looking at a bigger screen. This gets all big bitmappy sometimes when I zoom in and enhance even more. So I suggest you also squint your eyes if it's looking really bitmappy, and it might help you find some things. Now what's interesting is we get like pure gray here, while everything else around here has a color. So see what you think is going on. All right, this one gets really weird, looking west-southwest. I saw a weird glow out looking out a window to the south, and I knew it meant go out and see what's going on above you. This was a weird assembly of clouds that was moving slowly across the sky from the northeast to the southwest, and it just felt so dang weird. And especially when I started looking at elements like E on this overall assembly, it just felt like multiple craft trying to cloak and disguise and move overhead actually pretty quickly, which was also odd because it was not windy this day. Now when I go to enhancement, it's all choppy and fuzzy, so that's again my telltale sign that we've got craft up there generating electromagnetic wave activity or other types of frequencies to just jostle everything up. And then we get weird, hints of like a reddish pink glow around here. And again, look at this like white glare out. So what's going on? We look at E, we're going to look over on the right-hand side of that whole assembly, and just something that just doesn't feel right about E. And even F, we look to the right, and it looks like an object here at E.3, and a triangular form happening at F. And again, the color signatures on this thing are really strange. And then we get this curved movement, a triangular form up here. There's something up, literally, happening in that overall assembly. Then we're going to zoom in on E just because I found it really intriguing. It had hard edges. We look to the right-hand side at the enhanced version, and you see this thing. It's got a pure shape, no mistake about it, and that's engineered. And there's other weird stuff like a ghosted triangle happening back here. I can't tell you exactly what's going on, but I can tell you that's not natural. All right, then we have this just for fun, more or less, because then this whole assembly started morphing, and this is what was happening on the fringe. Again, this does not look like natural cloud, all this kind of disintegration and loosely put together stuff. But with enhancement, kind of looks like the profile of a dragon's. If you look at this as the eye and the mouth open, with the fiery stuff coming around it, and then the wing kind of curving back over its head with its like horn or ear. But, sorry for the voice crack, but when we look at this, this has a little bit of a crystalline formation in a triangular form. And this really bright point can't happen. That's not a hole. That's not a hole in this cloud formation we're seeing beyond. That's like something reflecting, so it's like a machine part or something sticking out. It's also that effect is happening here too. So I'm absolutely saying this is some type of craft activity happening in here. I can't tell you how many, if this is one big thing or multiple pieces. This is one I'm going to leave to you to see what you think. But even just at a face value as cloud play, it's actually kind of a fun profile of a dragon. We're going to zoom in one more time just to see if I'm altering the contrast a little bit more, pushing it, just to see if I can pick out any other elements. But this one still is pretty mystifying. It's pretty well cloaked, so I can't get at too much more. All right, now we're going to look east, and this gets really curious. So at C, we have the supposed moon. Felt very projector-like, but we'll call it the moon for now. And then over at A, as we had looked toward the south to the right, this whole overall cloud assembly also felt very artificial, very ragtag, not cohesive, not like any typical cloud I know from decades past. Then we get this strange arc coming off of here, like a nice bent, but pure arc form. And if you follow the line of the trajectory heading toward the north, you see kind of like a darker shadowed part, but it's still carrying on with that arc. And then it, kind of terminates here in a curve. And it even has like a little force field in front of it, because we see another little groove in the negative in front of it. So it's almost like something is shooting up out of here toward this supposed moon. Very strange. And so with enhancement, we see, yes, we've got some red-pink activity going on there, a triangular shape beyond. Definitely says there's some type of craft activity happening. There's also a much darker shape above, so that could even be some kind of massive planetary body or craft, who knows, but that doesn't pop up typical. And then we start to, if we follow this the reverse way back, this trajectory, look what we land in. This has a totally different color, light gray, cool gray, compared to warm smoky gray happening all around it. It even has a pure line, a curve. It has like a little foot here and another foot here, and it looks very symmetrical in design. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. It has a very symmetrical overall design. Like if you look at it on an angle, like it's an oblique angle, with like another little like dome-like thing or capsule on the top of it. And so whether this thing is shooting it or something from within this cloaking area, because I'm going to call this cloaking cloud for craft, something looks like it's launching with the intent to, go in front of this supposed moon or hit something, I don't know. See what you think about that. And we're going to zoom in on just what I was calling the craft part. And again, here's that like capsule thing sitting on top. We definitely see a totally different color signature with this extra push on enhancement. It's more purple and indigo, while everything else around it is something else. And then look at this. So what is going on in that scene? And then look at we've got some straight lines. We've got a right angle here. None of that is natural cloud, and certainly not the profile of a natural cloud. All right, now we're going to look to the east-southeast, and C really caught my attention. The overall sky just looked weird, screamed there's something going on, more than meets the eye. But we look at C, and it was just strange. So it was pitched down. It had like these three spaced out, like regularized spacing of these elements, and had this weird point going on. So we look at C.1, and with enhancement, and yes, I see like regular points popping out. So to me, this is absolutely some type of cloak and craft. You see a pure peak or point at the end of it, like a tail. You know, that didn't happen in natural clouds either. Some dark mass is moving down in here and very well cloaked. And then again, we get some red pinks in there. We get what looks at 8.1 like the peak of a triangular form. Just a lot of strange things are happening in this scene. Then we're going to move in on my little C.2 now. Look at this. Look how clear that is. This looks like absolutely, almost like a bat wing. It reminds me of Element, but definitely has intelligent design to it. And with straight lines coming to points, you know, at a regular like interval, symmetrical form down here. But see what you think is going on with this overall thing. And this almost even, look, if you flip it the other way, if you said this is like an eye, and this is the front, it almost looks like an orca with like a whale tail in the back with his little fins or flippers. So I don't know, see what you think this thing is doing. But in no case can you have a bright object, you know, with a dark background behind it, and it not be something artificial. See what you think is happening. Okay, now we're looking up toward the east-southeast, and I saw a little bit of a halo happening where the sun is supposed to be back here, and this cloud mass, which really isn't a cloud, it's artificial of some making, moved conveniently in to, you know, cover the view of the quote-unquote sun, which again I'm saying is artificial effects of something happening there in front of our true sun. But here you go, you see different colorations of something is going on back in there. I can't tell you what. But if our sun is supposed to be here and bright, how do you have something dark in the back? And there are even backlit shapes kind of coming to the fore. And then right here at B.1 in your face is some type of pure triangular form. See what you think is happening in that mess. All right, now we're going to look to the east. And what caught my attention on the originals on the left, the highlighted or enhanced versions to the right, I just noticed this weird kind of spray vertically up of something happening, like a mist, out of this supposed cloud. It just looks strange, in addition to the strange independent individual puffs, you know, happening along here. So we look to the right, and again, this is looking east. This one is, I'm not sure, actually I don't have the timestamp for some reason. Do I? Something got messed up on the timestamp. But anyway, we're looking east toward the evening, and again, this weird burst up. But look at this. It's something is like beaming up to this cloud and to this quote-unquote cloud. So I think there's a cloak and craft down here, and it's sending energy or something up to these two cloak and craft. It's just really strange, whatever it is. This would never happen in a natural cloud assembly, or, you know, this is raining something down in this too. I don't know about that, but see what you can find when you have a little more time to look at this overall very bizarre scene on your own time. This is also looking like a triangular form. All of these things are just feeling very odd in this scene, but see what you can find. Again, this whole thing, though, is very mystifying down here. Okay, then we're still going to look at other elements of that same scene, especially A. Let's look over to the right at the enhanced version. It's got like a Christmas tree effect and profile. So obviously, definite triangular symmetrical form, saying there's craft going on in here. And then what gets even weirder, you're going to have to squint if you're on a bigger screen because it gets bitmappy, is look at this straight line coming down to this triangular form assembly. So again, this never happened. This would never happen in a natural clouds, just moving across the sky in this area. We also have like echoes of triangular forms with straight lines happening above too. See what you can find in there. All right, well, this is the photo of the day and the close of the show. Photo credit goes to different friends of Lavender Sky Panther. Thank you very much for sending this in. Now, this is in Miami, Florida. Actually, this is maybe about 4 miles away from where I live, so that's pretty interesting, I'll just say, because this is a huge alligator, huge. And in the foreground, actually, there's a coconut and some pine needles, I think from an Australian pine tree. And again, we'll close off. We started off with our rock and rock people, and we'll close with this rock over here. So anyway, I want to just say thanks for grinning and bearing it here a while. I wish you a beautiful right now and a gorgeous weekend ahead if you're entering into weekend mode whether you are in the world, whether in physically or just your mindset is already there. Wish you all the best and always tremendous peace and love. Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.